A killer stepdad thinks he can get away with murder, but his wife reveals one tiny clue that he could not have possibly known about this detail is going to leave him busted. He had always been jealous of her son. Ever since her ex-husband died in a freak camping accident when he was just a baby, she remarried a man named Carl, who quickly became a father figure for her son. But her son, Bobby, never really warmed up to him. He saw how Carl treated his mother and how he demanded everything from her and never gave anything back. The only time Carl ever showed affection towards Bobby was when he tried to teach him how to drive or when they went fishing together. But even then, Bobby felt like he was being interrogated rather than having a bonding moment with his dad. Carl would ask him questions like, "Do you think it's easy to control a boat? You have to be firm but fair. Just like being a captain of a ship, you have to know when to strike." Confused by these cryptic remarks, Bobby never opened up to him. But what he didn't realize was that his mother knew exactly what Carl was trying to do. She knew he was trying to tell her that he wanted to kill him, and she couldn't believe that he would actually go through with it. Even though Carl had always seemed so respectable, trustworthy, and intelligent, she couldn't help but worry about her son's safety around him. One night, after Bobby had gone to bed, she confronted Carl. "What did you say to him?" she asked, her voice trembling. Carl looked at her in surprise. I don't know what you're talking about," he said, but she could see the guilt in his eyes. She pressed him, demanding an explanation. Finally, Carl broke down and confessed everything. When he first met her, he had already planned to marry her, but before he could make his move, he had to get rid of her ex-husband. He knew that if he didn't, her ex would always be a threat to their relationship, so he took out a life insurance policy on him and then waited for the perfect opportunity to take him out. When the camping accident happened, Carl was quick to comfort her and offer his support. He knew that it would make him look suspicious if he didn't, but it also gave him the chance to get rid of her ex-husband and collect on his life insurance policy. As soon as Carl got married, he started eyeing Bobby. He knew that if he wanted to be taken seriously as her husband, he needed to get rid of her son too. But he couldn't risk doing anything that would draw attention to himself, so he decided to wait until Bobby finished high school. Once he graduated, Carl began to pressure Bobby, trying to force him to move out and get his own place. He told her son that he was holding him back and that she needed to let him grow up and become independent. But really, he just wanted to get rid of him so that he could finally collect on the life insurance policy he had taken out on him. Bobby knew that something wasn't right, but he couldn't put his finger on it. He just had a bad feeling about his stepfather. But every time he tried to talk to his mom about it, she would change the subject. She didn't want to hear anything negative about Carl. She loved him with all of her heart, and she knew that he would never hurt anyone intentionally. She tried to reassure Bobby, telling him that Carl was a good man and that he had no reason to be afraid of him. But Bobby couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then one day, Carl invited Bobby to go fishing with him. It was supposed to be a bonding experience between them, but Bobby could tell that his stepfather was only using it as an excuse to get rid of him. As they were casting their lines into the water, Carl suddenly reached over and grabbed Bobby's rod, yanking it away from him. "Don't you know how to fish?" he snapped. "You have to be patient and still. Just like a captain steering a ship, you have to be calm and focused. If you're not, you'll never catch anything." Before Bobby could respond, Carl had already cast the line back into the water and turned away from him. Bobby felt tears stinging his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. He wasn't going to give his stepfather the satisfaction. He sat there for hours, watching the line bobbing up and down in the water. Finally, it was time to go home. As they were packing up their gear, Carl reached over and clapped Bobby on the shoulder. "You didn't catch anything today," he said, "but next time we go fishing, you'll be more successful. Just remember, a captain always has to be prepared for anything. That means knowing when to strike and knowing when to hold back." Then he turned and walked away, leaving Bobby standing there with his thoughts. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that his stepfather was trying to tell him something. He knew that Carl was dangerous, but he didn't know why. So he went to the police and told them everything. At first, they didn't believe him. They thought he was just a troubled kid who was lashing out at his stepfather. But when they started investigating, they found out that Carl had taken out life insurance policies on both his wife and stepson. They also found out that he had a history of domestic abuse and had been arrested for assaulting his wife in the past. With all of this evidence, the police were able to arrest Carl and charge him with murder. At his trial, Carl tried to defend himself, claiming that Bobby was lying and that he had never done anything to him. But the evidence against him was overwhelming, and he was eventually found guilty. As the judge was sentencing him, Bobby stood up and told him, "You may have thought you could get away with what you did, but you didn't count on my mom. She always believed in me, and she never gave up on me. She taught me that no matter what, I should always keep fighting for what's right. And that's why I won't rest until you rot in jail." The whole courtroom was silent as Bobby finished his statement. Everyone was stunned by his bravery and determination to see justice done. Carl's face was pale and he was shaking as the judge read his sentence. He had been found guilty of 2 counts of murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As the police led him away in handcuffs, Carl looked back at his wife and mouthed the words, "I'm sorry." But she didn't even bother to look at him. She knew that he was only sorry that he had been caught. She had known all along that he was a monster, and she had been right. In the end, it was her son who had saved them all. If he hadn't come forward with his story, Carl would still be walking free. As the years passed, Bobby became a successful detective. He used his experience growing up with a stepfather to help other victims of domestic abuse, and he never forgot the lessons his mother had taught him. He knew that no matter how difficult things might seem, it was always important to keep fighting for what's right. And in the end, it was his bravery and determination that had brought his family the justice they deserved.